Like they say, not all heroes wear capes, and this was the case recently at a small grocery store. A veteran stood at the checkout, realizing he didn't have enough money to pay for his groceries. His face showed the weight of embarrassment as he fumbled through his pockets, trying to find a solution. But just when the situation seemed bleak, in walked basketball star Caitlyn Clark. And without a second thought, she stepped up for the man. Which begs the question, how exactly did Caitlyn step up for the veteran? Join us as we get into all the details. Caitlyn Clark, the hero. The weight of the uniform felt heavier than ever as Sergeant Michael Mike O'Connell stood in the sterile office, the crisp white walls reflecting the empty thud of his heart. The discharge papers sat on the desk, a subtle yet painful reminder of the life he had once faithfully dedicated to the military, now slipping through his fingers like sand. A chronic, debilitating back injury, sustained during a training exercise in the unforgiving desert, was finally forcing him out, leaving him with a bitter taste of other than honorable discharge. Something that felt like a personal betrayal considering the amount of time, dedication, commitment, and hard work that he had put into service. Mike had joined the Army straight out of high school because he was drawn to the brotherhood and the sense of purpose. He had thrived in the structured environment, excelling in combat training, earning accolades for his leadership and courage during his first deployment in Iraq. But the desert's unforgiving heat and the relentless strain of combat had taken their toll on him. His body had finally caught up to all the stress. The back injury he initially dismissed as a minor strain gradually worsened over time, causing agonizing pain that eventually rendered him unable to perform his duties effectively. The medical board's decision had been instant, their faces betraying a detached clinical assessment as they declared him unfit for service. The physical therapy sessions, the pain medication, nothing seemed to help the persistent ache. Mike's once confident stride was now a labored shuffle. Even after the clinical assessment, Mike was too adamant to give up. He wanted to continue service, so he pleaded to be given time off from service so he could get surgery. But his request was met with a negative response. Mike was given an anonymous report to complete, after which he received a meeting invitation. And just a day after the invitation, he was terminated, to be given his paycheck the following month. The hardest part for Mike wasn't only the termination, it was the unspoken judgment from his colleagues. The knowing glances from fellow soldiers, the subtle shift in friendship. It was as if he was no longer one of them, his bravery on the battlefield discounted by his compromised health. The military, Mike realized, was a machine that demanded peak performance, and he was now a broken part, discarded without ceremony. After his discontinuation, Mike returned back to his small hometown, which he had never stayed more than a week in since his years in service. The quiet streets were more or less a sharp contrast to the intensity of the military life he had grown accustomed to. The transition from veteran to civilian in the blink of an eye was just brutal for Mike. He had only heard from friends in the military that transitioning was always hard. He never knew it would be his reality very soon. Keep watching to find out what happened next. The civilian jobs Mike applied for often ended in polite rejections, each email a thinly veiled dismissal. His medical records, detailing the injuries he sustained in service, seemed to cast a dark shadow over his qualifications, turning him into more of a liability than a candidate. It became a grim reminder that, despite his efforts, his past injuries were an invisible wall, separating him from the future he desperately wanted to rebuild. No matter how qualified he was on paper, it was as if society had already moved on without him, leaving him stuck in a limbo between two worlds. He was too changed, too scared for civilian life, but no longer part of the military. Desperate to fully understand the intensity of the situation, Mike spent countless nights scouring the internet, digging into articles, research papers, and forums where veterans shared their stories on how they navigated life after service. One piece of research really hit him hard. It detailed the psychological toll that veterans endure after returning to civilian life. The research talked about the invisible wounds that linger long after their service ends. Wounds like post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety, often unspoken, left veterans carrying burdens employers couldn't always see. These unacknowledged fears, he realized, might be part of why his applications never gained traction. Another article described the employment barriers veterans faced. It spoke of how military skills, gathered over years of service don't always translate into civilian job markets. Leadership, discipline, and quick decision-making, all critical in the field, didn't seem to carry the same weight in an office environment. It was a reality Mike knew too well. His years of experience were often dismissed or misunderstood, leaving him feeling out of place in every interview room he walked into. With each article, Mike felt the weight of his situation grow heavier. The obstacles weren't just about finding a job. They were about finding a place where he belonged, a place that saw his value beyond his medical records, beyond the stigma attached to veterans struggling to adapt. But Mike didn't let this affect him. As he continued to gradually build his life up, he held on to a glimmer of hope, even though the transition had been rough. He now found himself living in his childhood home, a place filled with memories, but now evident by the loss of his parents, who had passed away just a couple of months before his discharge from service. They hadn't left him with much, but Mike was grateful to have a roof over his head, one less worry as he tried to get back on his feet. As time progressed, Mike still hadn't gotten his paycheck, and Mike was getting low on cash, which led to him becoming more and more anxious. This prompted him to call and make inquiries as to why he hasn't been paid yet. After being put on a long hold over the phone, his call finally connected. He inquired about why he hadn't been paid yet, and his former employers assured him that he was going to get paid once they immediately got off the phone, and Mike, believing them, hung up the phone with a sense of relief washing over him. But this was where things took a terrible turn. Keep watching to find out what happened next. While Mike was excited about his incoming paycheck, there was one major issue. His phone wasn't reliable. The screen was cracked, the battery barely held a charge, and accessing his banking app was nearly impossible. Yet he was confident the money would have come through before he made the trip to the grocery store. It had been a while since he last went shopping, and the supplies he had left wouldn't last him much longer. And so, Mike got dressed, grabbed his keys, and headed to the grocery store. When he got to the store, he noticed the store was a bit filled up, with people taking photos with some sort of celebrity. Mike didn't know who the celebrity was, and he didn't have any conversant knowledge about any celebrity as a matter of fact, so he paid no mind to what was going on. Mike's focus was on getting items he really needed, which included essentials like bread, milk, some canned goods, and a few fresh vegetables that could cover his meals through 2 entire weeks. His basket was modestly filled with essentials and some beers, and he made his way to the registrar to make payment. Luckily, he was the second in line, and within minutes, he found himself in front of the line. The cashier rang up his goods and told him his bill amounted to $8. Mike handed his card, but it kept coming back declined. Mike couldn't help but wonder what was going on. He told them to try one more time, but the payment came back as denied. They had promised he was getting paid immediately the call dropped, and that was 30 minutes ago. Mike still couldn't believe this. Embarrassed, Mike brought out his wallet to pay, only to realize he was $50 short on cash. The line behind him was growing, and at this time, the other customers were visibly fuming, growing impatient and yelling at him. Mike apologized and turned back to the cashier and told her to take a couple of things out. But still, the cash he had at hand couldn't cover the remaining items. As the protest started to grow loud at the back of the line, Mike was increasingly embarrassed and was about to leave, when someone emerged from the line, and you wouldn't guess who it was. It was done by none other than basketball megastar Caitlyn Clark. Mike, still totally oblivious to who this was, couldn't fathom why people were staring in their direction. Until someone from the crowd shouted if it was truly Caitlyn Clark. Then Mike thought to himself, "Wait, that name sounds familiar." Suddenly, he remembered where he had heard the name. His veteran friends were always obsessed with watching her play. Mike couldn't really understand why grown men in their late 30s would be shouting over a ball going into a net, as Mike was more of a book guy. Caitlyn emerged from the line and stood beside Mike, asking the cashier how much he was short on. Without hesitation, Caitlyn pulled out her card. But instead of only paying the amount he was short on, Caitlyn decided to pay the money in full, and even told Mike that he could get as much groceries as he needed, and bills on her. Mike couldn't wrap his head around this. He had only heard about her a dozen times from fellow veterans who deeply liked her skills on court. Never in a million years did he imagine that he would meet her and possibly converse with her. In that moment, Mike couldn't help but look over at Caitlyn, a wave of gratitude washing over him. If he was still a veteran, he could brag about meeting the Caitlyn Clark, whom his friends fanboy over. After helping pay for his groceries, Caitlyn didn't stop there. She waited for the cashier to pack the items up, and she offered to help Mike carry some to his car. Mike was speechless. She had already done more than enough. All of this felt so surreal, because who pays for all your groceries and still helps you take them to your car? It felt so surreal, almost like he was in a movie. Once they got to the parking lot and to Mike's car, she handed him the groceries to put in his car. And Mike couldn't help but thank her time and time again, telling her he was genuinely grateful. But Caitlyn, who was somewhat curious about what was going on with Mike, asked him if he was genuinely okay. A question that he hadn't been asked since forever. This question took Mike by surprise at first before he finally replied truthfully. He explained to her how he was terminated from service because of his injury, and this touched Caitlyn so much so that she offered to help foot some of his surgery bills and look into places that would hire him. Wait, what? Mike was really shocked by this. For someone he just met, Caitlyn was genuinely nice towards him, and she acted like they were not strangers. Caitlyn withdrew from the closest ATM machine, giving him some cash pending the time he got paid. But that's not all. She also gave him her phone number. Back in the supermarket, customers and employees could not help but be dazzled at what they just witnessed. In the parking lot, Mike thanked Caitlyn continuously for her generosity. Caitlyn, who is now holding Mike's hands, assured him that everything will be fine and he should give her a call. But this was just the beginning of the many good deeds the star has done. Caitlyn Clark's good deeds. The Indian Fever star has always exuded generosity time and time again, and this time, it's no different. Caitlyn is widely known for her influence in the world of women's basketball, which can be truly seen through the way her fans attend her games and show support for her through posters. And Caitlyn doesn't only receive love and support from her fans, she also showers them back with the same amount of love and support they've shown her. But her generosity extends far beyond just her fans. The same generosity she had towards her fan also extended to strangers, be it Mike or someone else. She has a genuine, unquenchable passion for serving others and truly making a difference, using her talents, platform, and influence to create impact and make a real difference. One of the many examples of her kind-hearted nature was her work with the Coralville Community Food Pantry, where she has spent the last 2 years channeling her influence into action. Just last year, Caitlyn partnered with the food pantry for a month-long donation push, a cause that was really close to her heart. Together, they launched the Team Up Against Hunger initiative, organizing a drive-through donation drive for the community. And the results were nothing short of fruitful. With Caitlyn's support, they were able to raise more than $60,000 in just 30 days, rallying donors to contribute $22 each alongside personal hygiene products. But it didn't end there. Fans had the opportunity to meet Caitlyn in person during the event, a chance to take a selfie with her in exchange for a donation. It was a small gesture on Caitlyn's part, but one that made a huge impact on her fans, who were used to seeing her from a distance. For Caitlyn, it was almost like creating a space where her passion for basketball and her commitment to service intertwined. Caitlyn, fresh off leading the University of Iowa to its first Final Four appearance in 3 decades, has been working tirelessly with the Coralville Community Food Pantry for 2 years. And in that time, she has helped raise over $80,000 for their cause. John Buller, the executive director of the food pantry, described their partnership as a perfect blend of his own fandom for Iowa women's basketball and his deep desire to fight food insecurity. When the opportunity arose to collaborate with Caitlyn, it was a no-brainer. The partnership not only utilized the NCAA's name, image, and likeness options to bring a popular athlete on board, but it also brought the community together for a greater cause. Their collaborative efforts together in previous years also asked for $22 donations, with Green State Credit Union stepping in to match each contribution. That campaign exceeded expectations, raising $23,000, surpassing their initial goal of $1,000, more than their initial goal. Caitlyn has also helped inspire countless girls to follow their passions for athletics, blazing the trail for female athletes everywhere. For Caitlyn, making an impact is about more than her achievements on the basketball court. Whether it's leading her team to new heights, rallying a community to help those in need, or inspiring young girls, she brings the same level of passion and dedication. And with every endeavor she takes on, her generosity continues to shine even brighter. What part of Caitlyn Clark's generosity touched you the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.